Herzlich willkommen zur nächsten Folge Hashtag QBWatch. Und wieder habe ich einen GFL QB zu Gast bei mir im Podcast und einen Playoff Quarterback, noch einen weiteren Playoff Quarterback. Und zwar diese Woche von den Berlinrebels Connor Kaegi zu Gast. Und mit dem spreche ich jetzt gleich natürlich auch wieder so ein bisschen über sein Football Journey, über seine Laufbahn. Ist ja auch schon nicht der Neueste hier in Deutschland, wie es ihm also hier in Europa, Berlin in diesem Fall gefällt und aber auch natürlich, wie er hierher gekommen ist. Also, gleich geht's los. Connor, welcome to my podcast. Really appreciate you taking out the time. I know it's playoff time for you and for the Rebels, so lots of things to prep for the game this upcoming weekend. But thanks for joining, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You know, grateful to take the time out of my day to do this.
Cool. And I've done a couple with others, right? So really like this is about kind of getting to know you a little bit better, right? So telling the audience, maybe telling the Rebels fans specifically, but also the GFL fans a little bit about who Connor is, what was your journey in football, how did you get to be in Berlin again, right? This is your second time around that you're playing for the Rebels. And so let's maybe just very generally kick it off, like back home in the States. I think you grew up in Oregon. Like, how did you get to play football? What, like, was it maybe your dad, your family? Was it something you were very interested in? How did your football journey start?
Yeah, so I've actually lived in a lot of states in my life. My family did a lot of moving, and so I kind of grew up. Well, I guess I started my early life in New York, and that's where I kind of started playing football at the age of 6. And so I think my dad kind of got me into it. He was a football player in high school and everything, and so I started my journey when I was 6 in football, playing little Pop Warner football. And then my family moved to Florida. That's where I spent a lot of my years from like age 8 to 16. So I kind of just grew up in Florida through my young and teenage years, and that's where I really started to continue to love football and grow in it and continue to play it every year. And I played a bunch of other sports, but football was always kind of that number one sport that I love the most. Um, and then my family at age of 16 for me moved to Oregon from Florida and finished my high school career there. And from there, had some opportunities to continue playing in college. Actually ended up serving a 2-year mission for my church outside of or right after high school. And then, so I started college a little bit late, but yeah, that was kind of the early journey of playing since 6, moving to a couple different states. Obviously then changing teams and stuff like that, and having new friends. But yeah.
Nice. I mean, I can only imagine, right? I mean, it's not easy to move as a teenager anyway, right? And then move maybe right within your high school, let's say, playing age, so to say. But run us through that a little bit. Like, what was high school football like? How big were the schools, either in Florida or Oregon, that you played for? And maybe what was your most memorable moments in that time frame of playing ball?
Yeah, so I did 2 years of high school in Florida. I was at in Florida is known as a smaller school. I think it was about around 800 to 1,000 students in our school, and we would end up we played against a couple times against schools that had upwards of 5, 6, 7,000 students. But we were a powerhouse in Florida at Bowles High School, and like I said, I spent my freshman and sophomore year there, and the competition there was very, very good. A lot of even NFL players right now are coming out of the state of Florida. A lot of big time college football players. It's a big state, and just a lot of talent coming from that area. Um, and had a lot of great memories. My sophomore year, I was on the junior varsity team, and we played against where Tim Tebow had gone to high school. And so that was one of our, I guess, kind of rival high schools. And so there was a lot of fun in that and playing against big time schools. Then junior year, my family moved to Oregon, so I played my junior and senior year in Oregon, and the competition wasn't as great as it was in Florida. Oregon's a much smaller state. Football's a lot bigger in Florida. And I went from a private high school to a public high school. So, kind of switching high schools middle of your high school career through that was, a little difficult, but also I'm a type of guy that makes a lot of friends with anybody, and I get along with anybody. And so I enjoyed kind of starting over and making some new friends and having a different lifestyle, and, changing from, living in a city of over 1 million people to moving to a city of like 20,000 was quite different. And, the private high school to a public high school. So a lot of things changed. But the football itself was still good football, and had a lot of fun. Got to learn a lot of new different things, and ran different schemes, stuff like that. Had different types of coaches, which is cool to have different coaches in your career. My high school in Florida, we had the winningest high school football coach in Florida history, as my head coach. And so it was cool to have that. And going to Oregon, played for a really good coach as well named Charlie Hall, and he ended up coaching at a couple different colleges as well, and now is back in the high school realm nearby. But my favorite memories in high school in general are just making friends. Like I said, because I went to 2 different high schools, I got to make a bunch of different friends and have different friend groups, and obviously across the country in the United States. Florida's on one side, Oregon's on the other. So very far away and very different lifestyles. But got to, like you said, make a bunch of different friends that I still have today. And I've lived in Florida again, over my adult life as well, and got to be able to still hang out with those friends there. So high school is really mostly about the friendships, the memories, the taking road trips together, and obviously playing football together, and those Friday night lights. There's kind of quite nothing like it. Getting to just spend that night with your boys, and go out there and play football together. So those memories of high school were built around that.
That's cool. Yeah, it's so cool to hear. And I mean, I feel the same way, right? I mean, I went to high school for a year, even though I never played ball there, unfortunately. But I look at it the same way here, right? With the group of guys that you played with, like you said, the road trips, the friendships that are molding there, and everything. It's something you get to keep for life. But it sounds really like you said, you moved from a very large city into kind of like an off-grid, so to say, environment. But that high school in Florida, and you talked about the junior varsity thing, right? So for the audience, maybe for them to understand, like high school programs, specifically larger programs, usually have like 3 teams, right? They have a freshman team, which is for the freshmen, the youngest ones, to get some playing experience. Then you have a JV team, which usually, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's usually freshmen and sophomore players, right, that play in junior varsity.
Hmm.
And then you have the varsity team, which is like the main team, right? That could anybody from freshman to senior could play there. Obviously, depending on the potential that you bring to the team. But what was it like? You talked about this being like the most or the winningest head coach in high school history in Florida. What was that program like? It just sounds like it was a huge deal, even though it was a rather small school.
Yeah, very huge deal. I still take things that I've learned from those 2 years playing for that head coach in my life today. Um, and the hard summer workouts every day. I think the discipline that team had was unlike any other team and program I've been a part of. It was built on hard work, dedication, and taking pride in those things. Even to the point where we're in warm-ups, and the head coach looks around. He's blowing the whistle for each line to go. He looks around, he doesn't see something he likes, a little bit of loafing, we're starting all over completely, and so it really was incredible to be around that, to see a coach who sets the tone from the get-go, even in warm-ups. You're talking. So to just be around that environment at an early age, I think set me up for a lot of success later on down the road, to be a part of a program like that, and has had won multiple state titles. I was a part of my freshman year. Like I said, I was part of the JV squad. I was also, part of the scout offense, getting the varsity defense prepared for games each week. But we were able to win the state championship that my freshman year, which was really cool. And I wasn't really playing on the varsity level yet, but just to be around that success in the environment and know what it takes to win a championship at a young age and see that does nothing but help you. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
hear you.
it was a really incredible experience to be around. Corky Rogers was the name, the head coach for that school, and to be around that, it was just incredible. And even taking his post practice speeches, post game speeches, and even summer workout speeches he would give, like it's unlike any other. You know.
Lots of experience. I can only imagine in those speeches for sure. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like an amazing time. But run us a little bit through then. How did you progress towards college? You said you started a little later, right, because of those 2 years away.
Yeah.
But how did it go? Were you recruited by colleges? Run us through the transition into college football and what that was like for you.
Yeah. So when I transitioned to that high school in Oregon, a smaller school, not many guys were going out of there playing college sports of any sport really. A couple big names out of football and big names out of baseball here and there, but few and far between. And so I was lightly recruited my senior year of high school to some smaller schools, some local schools nearby for football and basketball, and then I ended up taking those 2 years off and serving that mission for my church. And through that, I would, email coaches and say, hey, look, I'm only getting bigger. I'm growing. I'm still working hard, and I still want to play football. And just anything you can do for me a chance at any school. I'd be grateful for it. And so just emailed hundreds and hundreds of coaches while I was gone on the mission. And from there, I was getting even a little bit more recruitment, if you will. I'd grown 3 or 4 inches on my mission. I'd gained like 30, 40 pounds. And so I really was forming into my body, a little bit of a late bloomer. And so I think when coaches started to see that, then, the interest spiked a little bit. Um, there was always a reservation of, oh, this guy's taking, time away from football. So they didn't really, not everyone wanted to, take a chance on that. But yeah, on that mission, I, was contacting a bunch of schools and ended up getting an opportunity at a junior college right off the bat. And, got to play there for one season, did well enough to get an opportunity at the University of Montana after that. This is now in spring of 2015, I enrolled in Montana and got to be there for a year and be under kind of a similar experience to my high school in Florida. Montana's a kind of a blue blood program of football at the FCS level, Division One, AA, and they're used to winning, and it's a really good program that again is all about dedication, hard work, and toughness. They talk about Montana tough out there, and you know getting through the cold weather and how it doesn't phase you and everything. But yeah, so I was at Montana for a year, and then things weren't really working out the way I wanted it to, and so from there I wanted to continue playing football. I really wanted to see the field sooner than I probably would have there, and so I transitioned into another junior college for one more season to get my opportunity up to play at a different school. Was there for a year, got a couple more kind of small school offers after that. Um, Big schools came with walk on opportunities, but really I was chasing the scholarship and the ability to play soon,
Mhm.
and so I ended up going to Ottawa University in Kansas for my last 2 years of college and played football and basketball there, which was really cool opportunity, and that was kind of I guess my recruiting process right out of high school and through college.
Yeah, but you can't teach size, right? So obviously, growing 3, 4 inches there after your senior year in high school, that's not very common, so to say, for sure. And of course, people would get interested. But where did you go for your mission trip, if I may ask? That's also curious, right? Because it's very rare, and I know how well it did for me to have the experience to go somewhere and just be away from home, become more self dependent when I was a teenager. How were those 2 years for you? If you want to talk about that a little bit as well.
Yeah. It was a great time. So I went to Louisville, Kentucky was kind of the base, and then I got to serve and live in areas around Louisville too, and other parts of Kentucky, some in southern Indiana, stuff like that, for those 2 years. Those 2 years really did a lot for me. Talk about self growth. I had gone out there, 18 years old, right out of high school, never really cooked a meal for myself in my life, you know, maybe did laundry once in my life at that point for myself. Maybe made my bed once, you know, bless my mom. She did a lot for me. In high school. And so really, getting thrown out there by yourself and, you're with a companion, they call it. And so it's, me and another guy and you switch out every couple months with another person and whatnot. But, you really got to grow and learn right off the bat. I had to do laundry, cook meals and learn how to do all those things that I probably should have at a little bit younger age, but just kind of got thrown into the fire at that point. Um, but then, once you
It's,
get it
it's
handle
the
that,
best
then
way to
you're
learn, though, if you ask me, for sure. Just get
yeah,
thrown.
yeah,
You got to.
totally.
Sometimes you got to do it, and then you figure out how to do it. But that's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. And then, figure those things out. And then, I'm out there working, trying to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ around and for 10, 12 hours a day, every single day for 2 years straight. You're out there in the streets, whether it's hot, cold, no matter the weather, whatever's going on in the world, you don't really know. You don't have a cell phone. Back in that day, we didn't have any iPads or anything like that. And we'd email home once a week on the internet. So we had internet access once a week for about 2 hours. And, I had no idea what was going on with football in the world, who was winning games, who was winning the national championship, the Super Bowl. I had no clue. The only time I would find out is, if we walked by a TV and saw some news or someone said something to us. And, but yeah, so I mean, it was a lot of growth and hard work in those 2 years, and I really grew into a man and figured out how to do a lot of things in life and learned a lot of life lessons through those 2 years. So I really grew not only as we talked physically, but a lot emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and everything like that as well. Just growing into an adult.
That's awesome to hear. And I think, like, to be honest, I wish we would all take out sometimes the time and get off grid, right? And not have like the internet access and the cell phone with us every day and everything. It just, helps to reset. But it really sounds like a great experience for you as a still teenager back then, and to probably grow into who you are right now. And it probably also helped you with, moving to college, moving to Europe, and being just self-dependent and being able to, figure things out yourself, getting things done yourself. But as you said yourself, credit to mom, right? We There's a time when we kind of, let's say, split up, but up until then, they're definitely the best with what they do for us. Um, but like, run us a little more through your college football experience. You talked about the universities that you've attended, your stint in junior college, right? Which quarterbacks at times do that, right, to get exposed because you get playing time, right, which is what people want to see if they want to make you an offer, scholarship offer, etc. What was maybe your most memorable, yeah, moments from your college football career? Yeah.
Most memorable moment for sure, my junior year, 2018. um, was a really good year for us at Ottawa. And the couple years prior, before I got there, they were struggling a little bit. Kind of had a couple years of losing records, but before that, they had you know um, just a great culture and great history of winning football and winning championships and stuff like that. And so they kind of you know was struggling to find a quarterback for a few years, and the head coach came out to me and said, I think you can be that guy to get us back on track. And so that junior year, my first year there, first few games, we, you know, blew those teams out, did really well, doing really well offensively. In the third game, towards the end of the game, I got knocked out with a concussion. And so I missed that game and then the rest of the next game. And so the following game, we were playing on the road at this team who has the only grass field in the whole conference that we had. So, most teams in the U.S., especially the level I played at, is turf fields. And this one team had a grass field, which I like playing on grass more. Except that day it was pouring down rain, and it made for a nice swampy mud bath of a game. And it was my greatest memory because one, just that, I mean, you're playing football with your boys in this mud bath of a game that not everybody gets to do, and in the moment you're like, man, this kind of sucks. You're wet, you're cold, you're muddy. You don't have grip. You can't, get your cleats in the ground and get footing. but you're still playing the game, and the clock's running, the world's still going, and you just got to do it and have fun. But towards the end of the game, we got the ball back with right around 2 minutes to go, down by 5. And like I said, it's cold, wet, rainy, so the ball obviously is slippery, the whole field's slippery. And at that point, at the end of the game, everyone's jerseys and clothes and hands and feet and shoes are all soaked, right? And so we got to do a 2-minute drive to go win the game in these conditions. And we drive down the field, whole way, convert a couple big third downs, convert a big fourth down. Um, I was rolling out, dove across the first down line to get a first down on that fourth down. And then a couple plays later, there's about 5 seconds to go in the game. We call our last timeout, and we just draw up a play to our big time X receiver. Big tall guy, probably the best receiver to come through that conference probably ever. Was getting looked at by some NFL teams that year, and so we just said, hey, I think we can get him on a double move, kind of slant corner, throw the ball up to you in the back of the end zone. And with 5 seconds to go, snap the ball, drop back, throw the ball to the back corner of the end zone. He catches it in the back corner, toe taps, touchdown. We win the game. The whole team storms the field in the road game. So it's their home crowd. It was their homecoming game. And we all stormed the field. Did big old dog pile. Everyone's going crazy, and that was definitely the top tier memory of my college career right there.
No, I would sign that off, man. That's but I love how you kind of started the storytelling, right? That the mud bath you with your buddies. That's the main thing, and I think I'm getting a sense on why you are still playing a ball, right, here in Berlin, and that it's just something that you love, but also specifically maybe the brotherhood, right? The uniqueness of the team sport football is. But it's me only interpreting that, right? So maybe tell us what is so fascinating to you about football, and what makes the position of a quarterback so special to you.
Yeah. So football is special to me. I've been, like I said, I think earlier, I've been playing since I was 6, and to me, it's the ultimate team sport, and it's where I've found happiness in my whole life. It's brought me nothing but happiness and fun times and memories and friendships and bonds, and those times of hard work and trials and getting through it. Like you talk about those summer workouts in Florida. It's at least in Fahrenheit, 100 degrees, 90% humidity, and it's hot as hell. And but you're out there with your boys getting through it together. And so for me, yeah, I think your interpretation is absolutely correct. I love the brotherhood from it. I love the fact that, like, to me, it's like I'm going to war with these guys. Whatever team I'm on, and here with the Berlinrebels every week, we're going to war together. And I don't care who's on the other side. I just care about my team. I don't care who was my team last year, who's my team next year, whatever it is. Right now, it's these guys I'm around, and I'm ready to go to war with you. And anybody who's played with me can tell you that I'm going to leave it all out there on the field. I would die on that field. For me, it's football has been my life, and uh, made me the most happiest I've ever been. And so to me, I'm going out there and leaving it all on the field. I'll do absolutely everything. I will not come off the field until I'm absolutely forced to leave the field. So for me, yeah, I'm a go-getter. I'm somebody who loves the game of football, and I'm obsessed with it, and I don't want to stop until that obsession fades.
Yeah, well, I hear you, man. It's football's definitely a sport that grabs you, right? And once it's got you, once it pulls you in, it's not gonna let you go. I'm pretty sure anybody can speak to that has played ball for a specific amount of time. And but how did you end up playing the quarterback position, and what makes it special to you? What, from your perspective, maybe differentiates it from other positions within football, but also maybe other, let's say, leadership position in sports?
Yeah, I think quarterback is the hardest position of all of sports. Um, I think it's something that demands a lot, and when things are good, you sometimes get all the credit. Things are bad, you sometimes get all the blame, and that's just what comes with it. For me, I like the leadership aspect of it. I thrive in being a good leader, a good communicator, and something that I think separates me from other quarterbacks is my knowledge of the game and the love for the game and just like we talked about the fact that I would go out there and leave it all on the field, and I think that speaks volumes as a quarterback and as a leader. If guys are looking up to the quarterback who's out there and they can see visually that he's giving everything he's got, leaving it all out there, and will do nothing but everything he possibly can to help his team win, then I think that helps elevate everybody else around him. And so at a very early age, I think my very first year of football, I played like defensive line or something, and then the very second year is when I started playing quarterback, and from there it was just kind of my thing. I loved just every part of it, and I loved throwing the ball around, and I loved being the guy with you know making the decisions. Like the ball's in my hands, and I'm the type of player that when the game's on the line, I want the ball in my hands. Whatever sport it is, it doesn't matter. But football, especially, like obviously the ball gets snapped to the quarterback every play, and you're that guy. And so at the end of the day, game on the line, I want to be the one making the decision, put the ball in my hands. And I think that's what I love most about being a quarterback is having the pressure to make those decisions, make the right decisions, taking care of the football, being a leader of the men around you, and rallying the troops together, and like I said, going to war. And I said, no better way to lead than lead by example. And to me, that's something I take pride in at the quarterback position.
Yeah, that's a great statement, right? And that's something I always believed in, right? Leading by example, like setting the tone, right, for the rest of the team. And you're not always going to succeed carrying the team, right? And it's not always about carrying the whole team, but kind of like being the one that, like you said, that makes the decision, that helps guide the team in the right direction, because you're like the right hand man of the head coach. Um, how did you end up, I don't know, in contact with teams in Europe? What was the initiative that made you look at Europe as a potential spot to play football in? And how did you go about that? Like, yeah, talk to us about the journey towards knowing about football in Europe, creating the first contacts and then finally signing with the team.
Yeah. So that junior year I talked about in college, towards the end of that season, I was actually getting contacted by a couple teams like out in a couple different countries. I think Poland was one of the most popular ones, and they were contacting me. And I think one time I got on a call and he starts like talking to me about, the contract and this and that. And I'm like, wait, like I have another year of college, like, and he didn't even know that. And so it ended up being, kind of funny. But so that was kind of like my first contact with European football, and then it wasn't until I guess every year 2020 2021 right out of college I would get a few messages here and there, but I was still talking with NFL teams and at that time spring league teams, which is now kind of the UFL level, and I was talking to teams at that level, so I didn't really give much time to teams out in Europe. And then it wasn't until I think it was maybe like fall of 2022 when I remember I was just sitting at home. I went to the gym one morning and I look at my phone and I had a couple messages from a couple different teams, and I was like, oh, that's weird. And it kind of all happened at the same time, which was odd to me that multiple different teams like within 24 48 hours all texted me, and I think they reached out to me like on social media mostly, um, and then I was like, oh yeah, there is football out in Europe. I kind of forgot about that. And so, started contacting them a little bit and texting back and forth and messaging a little bit and hopped on a phone call here and there with some teams. Um, and to me, it was like, well, shoot, if, this is an opportunity to play and, it's still kind of that weird COVID time a little bit, just kind of getting out of it. So, there wasn't a whole lot of opportunities. And, like you kind of alluded to earlier, like the quarterback position, there's only one on the field at the same, at a time. Right. And so, your opportunities are a little more limited. And so, anytime an opportunity comes your way, you want to, answer that call and hear it out. And so, yeah, I heard a couple different teams out, and it was interesting. I didn't think I'd ever maybe really leave the U.S. in my entire life, and so the idea of that started to gain a little bit more traction. but yeah, I started talking to teams and got more interested in it. And I actually had a friend who was my teammate at that high school in Florida, who was part of an ownership group of a team in Denmark, and because he was from Denmark and he was like an exchange student or whatever in my high school in Florida, and so I
Yeah.
reached out to him and I said, hey, can we have a couple conversations and you kind of tell me about this European football stuff, and so it was really cool of him to take his time to kind of talk to me and I guess school me up on European football, so I got a little bit of knowledge from the side there, you know. So yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because it's not the most common way, right? Most other players you talk to, they, I don't know somebody that's played in Europe, so they create their own profile online, right, on one of these platforms like Europlayer, and then obviously people or teams reach out. But there's also other teams which they're very structured, they're very down to their scouting, right? They'll go to all different kinds of colleges, maybe even specific smaller. I mean, smaller. I mean, like maybe not like Division One, the big conferences
Mhm.
and stuff, because I do feel that sometimes playing for one of those not so in the spotlight colleges is actually better for coming to Europe and play, because it is two completely different worlds that you're looking at from a football aspect, from an attention aspect, from a media aspect, from an expectation aspect. So it's interesting that these teams just reached out to you. And Denmark, for example, to me, has always been one of the countries that was the best when it came down to the youth football development, right? Having those connections, sending a lot of youth players over to the States to be high school players, foreign exchange students and stuff. Other countries are catching up, but Denmark was probably one of the first ones in Europe that did it in a somewhat structured way via their foundation. So that's pretty cool to hear that you had that exposure to, a kid from Denmark playing high school football with you as an exchange student. Um, then like talk to us. What was the first team you committed to? How did that go about? Why did you commit to them? And how was that first year playing in Europe from a football aspect? Maybe not yet necessarily from a culture aspect. We can touch on that later, but what was your
Mhm.
expectations from a football side and how were they met?
Yeah, so my first year was with the Berlin Rebels, and in 2023. So football wise, coming out here, I didn't really know fully what to expect. It was cool though. The American receiver we were bringing over was kind of a recent buddy of mine, and so I at least had a friend right off the bat coming with me pretty much out here to Berlin, and so that was nice to kind of have that to kind of have a little bit of experience with him and um, that. That bond and just chemistry with him on the football field. Um, but yeah, football is I really didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how far along the guys were out here. I didn't know does the team have 100 people? Does the team have 20 people? Do I have to play both ways? Like I didn't really know all that stuff. Um, obviously I learned a little bit through phone calls and getting kind of closer to that day of coming out here, but um, yeah, I think my expectations, didn't really have a whole lot football wise. And so coming out here, I think I was a little bit more surprised that guys are a little bit further along maybe than I would have guessed off the bat. And I expected them to, not really love football that much and kind of just out here to do it. So it was cool to see a bunch of guys that love the game and in a place that, isn't so popular with American football. Obviously, it's growing over the last couple of years and everything. But yeah, so I mean, I think the level of football is good out here and it's growing each year, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and I remember that year. A couple years ago, I did. I was, I think I commentated one game for the Adler, which I mean, I'm from Berlin, born and raised here, right? So we pretty know the same people in and out because the football world is a small world, right? So I know Dewan for years. Cliff Madison was like my coach when I was a kid and stuff. So, which
Wow.
it's cool that we're kind of like, I didn't have the chance with the other quarterbacks to talk about it this way, but I remember playing a senior play a couple of years ago, which was your first year with the Rebels, and you impressed me right off the bat with your. I mean, obviously you're a taller QB, but also, it just with your style of play and everything, and it's funny, not funny, but like you talked about, obviously the football is not as big in the States. So you're not going to have as many people being crazy about football. But I always felt that people here, or the ones that are just as crazy, if not a little bit more, because it's so much more difficult to get exposed to football over here than it is in the States. Run us through your first year with the Rebels. How did it go? What was your experience? Yeah, reflect on that year from beginning to end. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a good year. We started off actually playing the Adler first game of the year, and to me that was kind of cool because it was a rivalry that I'm coming in and never being in Europe and never even leaving the States in my life, and then coming out here to play football and not really knowing what to expect, and right off the bat, first game of the year, it's a rivalry. So that was kind of cool to kick off my European football experience with Berlin versus Berlin, and it was, of course, great that we won that game for us. Um, but that season was kind of up and down. I think we won that game. We beat another team the next game. Then the third game of the year, we went to Dresden in their big stadium, and I didn't know again much about the history of the GFL and stuff like that, but I knew that nobody gave us a chance to win that game. I think the Rebels were coming off maybe a 4-win season, and Dresden I think made it to the semis, and obviously a historic team of winning culture. And so no one gave us a chance to win that game, and we actually went in there and won it in front of a crowd of 12,000 or so, and man, that was definitely one of the coolest experiences of my life. And then it's kind of funny. So we started off 3-0, and then we lost three, and then we won three, and then we lost three. And so that was kind of our season, was just this up and down wave of kind of going on these little win streaks and then a little lose streak and slip up and, kind of get it back and lose it again. And I was battling kind of injuries throughout the whole year. It was tough. I've gone most of my career without being injured too much. And so battling a couple different injuries that season to me was a little different, having to handle that when I haven't really had to battle injuries. Um, but the season itself, I think we did, a lot of great things. We exceeded, I think, some expectations that were set for us. Went to the playoffs, and I missed the last two games of the regular season with a torn LCL in my knee, and so I tried to, play that first playoff game, and it was a little rough. I had a knee brace on. It was only about 4.5 weeks after I just completely tore it, and it was, a 6-week recovery, and we're trying everything we could to hurry that process up, and clearly, it wasn't back to 100% fully. So, we ended up losing that game, which was tough. It was a great atmosphere in Schwäbisch Hall, and got to experience that. So that was a lot of fun to kind of see that atmosphere in Schwäbisch. But I would say overall it was a good first year, good first experience out in Germany, and definitely, you know, losing that game gave me the itch to come back and keep going at it, and come back to Europe and keep playing.
Going into Schwäbisch Hall is never an easy task for the playoffs. I've had my share of those ones as a coach, definitely. But you just said that you were set on coming back, but it took you a little bit to come back. I want to say the year after you played some arena ball, and then actually played with the Saarland Hurricanes, if I remember correctly. But
hmm
before we touch on that, talk to me a little bit about arena ball. I've always been fascinated about the comparison. I mean, best example is Kurt Warner, right? Who's played arena and then made it big time in the NFL afterwards. And he always talks about how it helped him to make faster decisions, right? And process the game faster, make his reads faster, which obviously helps you in a bigger field, but it's just so necessary in this compressed environment of arena ball. How did you feel about that? What was your experience playing arena ball?
Yeah, definitely can attest to, things happen faster on a much smaller field. It's really get the ball in your hands, and at max you're taking that 3 steps and letting the ball go. Sometimes you're not even taking a step, you're just getting the ball and throwing it. And the defense can only do so much. And so once you saw something happen pre-snap, you had a really good idea of exactly what they were doing, because really they can only do so much, so many different options. And so to me, it was, you know, pre-snap read of I know what's happening, and then once I get the ball in my hands, make that quick decision. A lot of times it was man-to-man defense. You know, they'd throw in some zone coverages here and there, um, but yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I think it's like you said, a very fast game, a different game. For me, I felt like I definitely like football outdoors, like 11 on 11, much better. I think it plays a lot more to who I am as a quarterback and my strengths. So, but yeah, I mean, I love the crowd aspect of it because, you know, you have your field, the walls, and then the fans are right behind the wall, you know, and it feels like they're crowded the field, and the atmosphere is pretty cool. You know, you guys would jump and dive into the stands catching a ball, and you know, anytime a ball goes in the stands, the fans get to keep it, and so it's a very fan friendly environment and game and stuff. um, and you know, of course, with it being an arena, if you got a lot of fans and they're loud, it can get and feel pretty freaking loud. So some atmospheres were really really cool to play in. And but yeah, I mean, just like, you know, you touched on, you know, you got to make those quicker decisions. It helps you definitely outdoors, you know, have to make a quicker decision, and maybe try to fit a ball in a window that you didn't think you maybe could before. Um, but yeah, overall, it's a fun game, fun atmosphere. But for me, I enjoy the game outdoors a little bit more.
Yeah. But now, what was the reason you went that path and maybe didn't sign with the Rebels again or another, German or European team right away to come and play? Or was it simply the seasons that arena ball, maybe was just in between then coming back to the Zorland Hurricanes? Run us through that decision process and how did you end up in Zorland?
Yeah, so I did want to come play for the Rebels again that next year. I think we had, you know, some unfinished business to take care of. But for me, at the end of the day, the team I went to play for was in Oregon, you know, just a couple hours up the road from my family, a bunch of my friends, and you know, they offered a pretty hefty contract that was hard to turn down. And so I think those were kind of the main reasons: one, the contract; two, and then to be close to family and friends, and then the ability to, you know, that season ends earlier, you know, in like summer, and so it's the possibility to be able to come out to Europe mid-season was a possibility. So I was like, um, you know, had that in the back of my head as well. Um, then actually in the third game of arena, I broke my thumb on my throwing hand pretty bad. I was out for 7 or 8 weeks, and so that literally ended my the rest of my season. And so just kind of got into coaching at my high school in Oregon while I was recovering, and you know, actually got contacted by a few other GFL teams. But I wasn't ready to come out yet because I literally couldn't grip a football, couldn't hold it. My thumb was really bad shape, and so finally it was when, you know, late June, early July, when Zarland called me, and you know, I was just about finished with the recovery and everything, and when they called me and, you know, presented the opportunity, it definitely helped the fact that Rory Johnson was their defense coordinator, which he was coaching with the Rebels the year before, and so for me there was, you know, another level of comfort to that, you know, being able to talk to him and know him, and hear how the situation is, and know that he would, you know, tell me the truth, and you know, tell me straight up, you know, what it looks like and everything. So you know, I had a couple phone calls with the head coach, and ended up really liking him, and figured, you know, this opportunity would be a good one. So ended up, yeah, going out to Zarland during that break.
It's always the connection. Actually, back then I thought Rory was never going to play or coach for any other team but the Rebels. He was here for such a long time. I remember coaching against him already a while ago, which I'm not going to talk about age and how old I am, but interesting. I mean, obviously sad that the arena season didn't go as planned, but you said you maybe got your first feet into coaching in a little bit, which is something I want to touch on later, like maybe where you see yourself in the future. But then the year after, right, you're back with Rebels, which is this year. So you're now again the starting QB for the Rebels. You've made the playoffs again like you did in your first year, and you've pretty much, I think, have a stronger team than you did a couple of years ago. Obviously, with the Adler going down a couple of divisions after what happened there, with the ELF and Thunder really struggling this year, new management, new coaching, everything quite short term as well. When before their season started, run us through your experience this year. What went well this year? What didn't maybe go according to plan? How did you feel you performed as a team? But maybe how did you feel you performed individually?
Yeah. You touched on it. But the beginning of the year was definitely a struggle to get started because you're combining, kind of three, four main teams, two definitely main teams, Rebels and Adler together. Then you had a couple guys from Thunder, a couple guys from Potsdam, a couple guys from Spandau. And so really you were making this team of complete strangers. And honestly, with Rebels and Adler, hating each other, it was an interesting, feel to combining two teams that, just hate each other and have this rivalry,
There's a
to
long
now
history.
be on the same team. Yeah. And, and like I said, before, like I didn't really know the whole history of it and everything, but I did know once as soon as I got here in game one being against the Adler, we hated the Adler, right? And like so that was just programmed in my head from the get go. And so yeah, so I mean, so the beginning of this season was a little struggle to get kind of started to gel together because you're combining so many different teams and cultures together into one. And I think after that loss to Dresden and Potsdam, we go on this 5-game win streak, which served us well. And so I think we turned it around that midseason, kind of found our groove. We found our identity in the run game, being able to run the ball, and so I was really proud of us that we kind of came together and leaned on each other. And a couple of those were some tough, close wins. Talk about the last play of the game to beat Kiel on a touchdown pass, which was really cool and a unique experience to bring us together as a team even more and bring us closer. So, and individually, I feel like I've done a good job at taking care of the football this year. I don't think I've ever really have a problem with taking care of the football, but I've definitely taken more pride in it this year to take care of the football and make the right decisions. Um, I've been struggling here and there with a couple things, part of my game, of, footwork in the pocket presence, and sometimes being lazy on my feet and not quite stepping into every throw. That's something that, you're always working on something as a football player. And so, continually each week I'm working on it and trying to, get myself to, play at the best of my ability each game. But overall, I feel like I've done a good job at kind of leading this team and putting us in positions to win football games. And I think our defense has done a good job at times as well to give us good opportunities as an offense. And I think our offensive line has taken over quite a few games to make the job completely easy for me. So yeah, I think overall, we're in a good spot. But we want to not only make the playoffs, but we want to win, each playoff game one at a time. So, that's the goal ahead of us.
And you talked about being responsible with the ball, right? Like if I look at your stats, 25-3, so 25 touchdown passes and 3 interceptions. That's really good, right? From my perspective, that's like more than 8-1 ratio. So really good job with that, and I think it speaks for itself. So, like you said, you wanted to take care of that football. I actually feel everybody always talks about. Always is an exaggerated statement, but currently people obviously talk about Potsdam and Dresden, right, being the two top teams in the league, the two strongest teams. And the feeling that I have is actually that if there is one team that can make them stumble, I feel it's the Rebels, just because of the potential that you have. Now, you talked yourself about there being a little bit of a roller coaster, maybe not being, reaching your potential at all times or reaching your potential from the very beginning, but it's always important that you peak at the end of the season. And so from my side, best of luck on maybe tripping one or even both teams in the playoffs. But first, you're going to Munich, if I'm not mistaken, right? So, which
Yeah.
is a long road trip, never easy for a team in Germany to make that road trip because it often includes maybe players struggling to go because of work, because of shifts, because of family and things. So, it's this weekend. Tell us a little bit about how do you prepare individually for a game, maybe for this playoff game. What does your week look like leading up to game day?
Yeah. Um, the week leading up to game day, let's see, Monday, Wednesday, Friday are kind of my gym lift days. Days I spend in the gym and continuing to, get stronger and kind of keep what I have and, keep your mobility, keep your body moving and stretch and everything like that. And as a quarterback, you got to keep your shoulder and arm warm and loose and stretch it out as well. And so there's different movements that I do to keep my arm in shape and able to continue to throw every single day, throughout a whole season. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday is my gym days. Tuesday, Thursday are big main, team practice days, and Wednesday is kind of an extra, import practice day with the guys. Um, and so outside of those things each day, I'm sitting right here at my desk and watching film, and specifically for the team we play this weekend, drawing up scout cards and getting, putting our scout defense in the right positions to make it look like exactly how we think, Munich will play us and the looks we're going to get. And so I spend time, doing that and kind of preparing in that way of seeing, Munich's defense and watching that film and kind of preparing my mind to put myself in those situations of, all right, if I see this and we're in this thing and we got this play call, maybe we can get out of it and this will be better. Or, if they're starting to, tiptoe one way, I know I've got something else. I can, flash a signal to a receiver and make him do something else. Um, so there's a lot of that preparation during the week as well, usually in kind of that morning and early afternoon times, um, and then those practices and Tuesday Thursday evenings where only two practices a week. That's not a lot of time to prepare as a team, and so you got to be sharp when you're out there and really get the most out of things. And then Friday, usually the day before the game. Is a big mental day. I'll hit the gym, get a little light lifting, get that body movement, and but then mostly it's get home, watch film, mentally prepare, and kind of more so repeat what I've done all week and go over and make sure I'm on the same page of what I saw all week is what I'm seeing now, and kind of confirm some things and just be ready to identify players who's where. If this guy's over here, that may mean this. If he's playing this way or is tilted this way, that means he's probably playing this kind of zone coverage or whatever it may be. So that Friday is kind of just a confirmation day of what I've seen all week. Let's kind of double down on that and re-go over those things and get that in my mind.
Yeah, I feel again. You kind of touched on it, right? The pre-snap read, being able to identify things before a play starts. I think that's so critical, in general in football, in general for a quarterback. But I sometimes I feel it's a little bit underestimated over here, um, or it used to be anyway. So it's really critical. And I love how you said like you're confirming what you've seen early in a week. You're going through these things again, so it becomes an automation. At least that's I always looked at it, right? That you see something and you right away know what decision to make, and it's not a long thought process that gets you there because you don't have the time on the field. So that's cool to hear. Earlier you said something about your strength fits more the football on grass, right, than normal football, not the arena football.
hmm
Run us through what you meant by that. What do you consider your strength as a quarterback?
Yeah. For me, my biggest strengths, accuracy, um, uh, decision making, like we said, taking care of the football, making the right plays, and then knowledge of the game is something I take a lot of pride in, and it comes with watching that film, going over pre-snap reads, seeing things early, what's going to be open, um, and then extending plays and making something out of nothing. I think in 2023 when I was with the Rebels, I ended up doing a lot of that year. I think we were kind of a younger team, not very deep, not very experienced. And so there, I think a lot more times then where I had to make something out of nothing. Whereas this year, I think we've got a lot more depth, we've got a lot more experience, and I haven't had to really kind of be a magician per se at times and make something happen. But for me, even just it doesn't have to be overboard, but making a guy miss in the backfield, hitting a check down route, or tucking the ball and running, and just making something out of nothing. So I think I'm really good at extending plays. Um, but I think, like, the difference, we talk about arena and outdoors, is, manipulating the defense, knowing what they're doing before the snap. Like I said, like in arena football, there's really only, you can probably count on one hand the amount of things they can really do before I snap this ball. Whereas outdoor, there's countless things, teams can do, and they're constantly preparing and trying to trick you as well. And so to me, it's like I take pride in um, knowing my pre-snap reads and knowing what the defense is doing, and then try to manipulate them who's trying to manipulate me. So I really think that part of the game you don't really necessarily get in arena football. And so for me, I think that's definitely what separates me and where my strengths lie in this game. And now I just turned 31 yesterday, and so I've been playing football for the last 25 years, 24 of them playing quarterback. So for me, I've got a lot of experience at a lot of different levels, a lot of different cultures, a lot of different schemes and offenses and coaches and everything. And so there's a lot of football up here that I think goes a long way, especially when you're talking about playing football in Europe and having a quarterback and a leader of the team. You definitely want somebody who's got some experience, and I've definitely got that. So.
Well, shame on me. Happy belated birthday for sure. I hope you had a blast
Thank you.
yesterday, even though being away from home and
Uh,
everything. But yeah, but I hear you, right, and it's the mental side of the game is so critical to any position, but specifically to the quarterback. Now, you touched on during your thumb injury that you went back and coached some high school ball at your high school. What's your, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 year plan? How are you going to play 10 more years? Are you, looking to hang your cleats soon? What happens if you hang them up? Is coaching the next step in what you want to do? Do you have a plan, or what's running through your mind when you look ahead beyond the season?
yeah. I told my girlfriend's dad this, but I said, if I was single, I'd probably play another 10 years. And I'm dead serious with that. I think I could play into my 40s and be able to still do it at a high level. I think I've definitely got the dedication and the desire to do that. But at some point, life calls, and you've got to have some stability in your life, and I think life will be calling soon to have me kind of move on from playing. I still hope to play another year, two, maybe three. We'll see if I'm granted that. But I definitely have that itch to continue playing, and after that, definitely get into coaching. I got to coach at Auto University, my college I graduated from back in 2021. I got to be the quarterbacks coach there, and then just last year, as we talked, I was got into coaching before I went to Zarland. Then when I came back from Zarland, I rejoined the staff as the quarterbacks coach, and kind of helped with offensive play calling a little bit here and there, and in preparation for the week and stuff. And so I really enjoyed it. I think for me, I would like to be at the collegiate level coaching. I think hopefully I can kind of start there and get myself in that situation and go from there. For me, I like to maybe eventually be an offense coordinator one day, a play caller, and kind of be able to insert my own offense and kind of do my thing with things, and be a little bit more complex. And I think you can kind of get into that in the college level more so than high school. Um, so yeah, I would definitely love to get into coaching and probably end up having a long career doing that. Can't get away from the game of football. Sorry about it, but it's just I love doing it, and I want to do what I love. So.
We talked about it before, right? Once it grasps, it's not going to let go. But to your point, and I went through the same thing, right? At some point, life calls, and as much as we love football over here, just as much as in the States, it's a tough business, though, right? Over here, more so because of it being a niche sport, right? And not many people can live off playing or coaching football over here. But even if you do, it's nothing that you can feed a family from, that you can set something aside from for later years. And in the States, it's just a lot of people wanting to be a professional football coach, or maybe not professional. I mean, professional from a standpoint of making a living by coaching. But there's thousands
Right.
of coaches out there that want to do that at a high school, collegiate level. So fingers crossed. I hope you get to make it. I hope you play those 3, 4, 5 more years. But if family calls, that's a good call, right? So it's not something
Yeah.
that we should regret or anything. So hopefully everything will go according to, the way you see things happening, and God has a plan. So it'll happen that way anyway. But now we talked so much about on the field, so much about football and everything. Earlier touched on wanting to get into the cultural side a little bit. So rewinding back to your first year in Berlin in 2023, I think it was. What was your expectations culturally? How did you know, get welcomed here? What was your experience like? Obviously, Berlin is a huge city, right? So it probably was a bit more again like it was for you in Florida rather than Oregon. But
Mhm.
what did you expect from a cultural aspect, and maybe how were those expectations met? What was like completely weird and unexpected?
Yeah. Yeah, I really didn't know what to expect. Like I said, I had never left the States in my life. So I think coming out here, I was really excited. But really, I didn't know how life was outside the States, if it was any different. And so there weren't a lot of expectations. I think for me, part of the, I guess, expectation of maybe being worried I can't, obviously speak the language, and luckily, Berlin's a big city. A lot of people speak English, so that wasn't really an issue necessarily. But I actually kind of liked that part and almost wish it was harder. Because I just, to me, obviously, living in the States, growing up, everybody speaks English, and that's just, it is what it is. And I come out here, I think I find it fun, the fact that, like, you know you can start speaking German. I have no clue what you're saying, and I'm standing on the train with people, and they're just having a whole conversation, and I have no clue what they're talking about. They could talk about anything, and I have no idea. And For me, it was kind of fun and neat to kind of have that cultural experience of having a language barrier, and kind of experiencing that for the first time. Um, let's see, outside of that, like, the public transportation was completely, shocking to me. The fact that coming from Florida, where, Jacksonville is actually, fun fact for you, the biggest city square mileage wise in the United States. And so it's completely spread out. And so really you hop in your car and, you got to drive 20 minutes just to get anywhere. If you want to go to the store, sometimes obviously a little bit shorter maybe, but if you want to go to a restaurant, if you want to go to the beach or whatever, you're talking anywhere between 15 and 30 minutes everywhere you go. And so, like, there's really no public transportation there, and I go to my smaller town in Oregon, and there's a bus that comes around that I see maybe once a month, like, it just, to me, I've only known driving in a car and stuff, and so to come out here and get that little train pass and hop on all these different trains and buses, like, that was super cool to me. Now, on my 2-year mission, I was exposed to a little bit of public transportation because we kind of did that. We kind of rode buses, but that's all it was. It was just a bus system in Louisville, Kentucky, and so I did get exposed a little bit to that. But obviously, this is a lot more intricate with multiple different underground trains and trams and buses and stuff like that. So that was really fun for me to kind of learn and get a hang of, and I actually find it really fun to be able to just walk outside my apartment, stand at the bus stop, and just wait, and then something comes, picks me up, and I get in it, and I stay on for 5-10 minutes, get off, get on the next one, and same thing, and I don't really have to worry about where I'm going or what I'm doing. I can just follow this little map, or just once you get the hang of it, you just where to go. And it's just fun to kind of do all that. Sometimes it gets a little frustrating when buses are so late and all that, but that happens. And then let's see, other culture. Oh, another big thing was like shopping. Like when I'm in the US and I'm at home, I'm gonna go to Walmart. First off, you can get anything at Walmart. Walmart's everything to me. So I pull up to Walmart and I will spend, $100 on groceries, like, because I'm buying for the entire week and then maybe some after that. So I'm buying in bulk. I'm buying as much as I can, and walking out the grocery store with this giant shopping cart of groceries, throwing them all in my trunk, and then driving away. Whereas here, it's like I've got a backpack and maybe a bag, and I've got to walk 15 minutes and get on two different buses and go home. And it's like I can't just go buy the whole store because the peanut butter jar is this big instead of this big, and I buy milk in a container that lasts 1 or 2 days, whereas I buy 1 or 2 gallons in the US and it lasts me a whole week or two. And so I think there's a big cultural shock with that. And it took me a while to get used to that, of going to the grocery store every 2 days, sometimes every day for a couple of days in a row, just getting things. And I didn't like it much at first at all because it was hard to get the hang of, and it was frustrating. But as I've lived, longer here, it's kind of become a habit and I'm used to it now. So
Yeah,
those are
but
some of, yeah, the
it's
cultural
it
things.
it's funny because it kind of brought me back into my high school years, right? That I went to the States, and it was similar but opposite, right? Here, the fridges are smaller. Even if you buy the same amount of stuff, you probably couldn't even fit a gallon of milk in the
Yeah,
fridge,
exactly.
really, right? Things like this. So it is different, and you can still go obviously with your car rather than by bus and buy like your whole weekly grocery need, but it's going to be a lot different than it is in the States for sure. And thanks for sharing. And like I talk about like culture shock, like to me, I just now while you were talking thought about it, like Berlin, you're not just exposed to the German culture, if at all. You're like exposed to so many different cultures within Berlin. Where do you live at in Berlin,
Mhm.
if I may ask? Like what
I
area?
live off of Kudam, like
Yeah.
Hollandsee.
Okay. So
Yeah,
yeah, Hansi, right? That's right by Kudam, right? So it's okay, but there's like so many areas in Berlin where you have all kinds of different cultures. And the one thing
right.
that I love about Berlin, it's you don't just have like one downtown. Like every area of Berlin has like its own downtown, a couple of bars, a couple of
Yeah.
restaurants, a couple of places to hang out in. But it's fun to hear. But with you being around the second time now, like what do you like the most about Berlin? Is it a specific food? Is it specific, like you talked about public transportation? I don't know if that's a favorite thing to like, but like, what do you like the most about living in Berlin?
Wow. I would just say the lifestyle. I mean, I've always been more of like a bigger city type of guy. Like in living in the US, I've enjoyed kind of being in bigger cities with, more population, more stores, more things to do, all that type of stuff. I think the thing I love about most about Berlin is, yeah, I like the public transportation aspect of it, but I think just the livelihood of the city and the fact that you said it's so diverse. There are so many different types of languages and peoples and culture and all that going on, and they constantly have these, parades and festivals and things outdoors, and you see all these different cultures and different people coming together and just celebrating together, with I know one of the early on, I think the May Day or whatever, the 1st of May, where there's like 50 different buses with 50 different types of musics and cultures and people celebrating their culture and educating others and what it looks like and what it sounds like. And to me, that is the coolest part of Berlin, to
Yeah,
see the
I think you're referring to the
diversity. And
Carnival of Cultures, which is that's an
yeah, yeah.
awesome festival, definitely.
Yeah. And yeah, to me that's just, with a lot that's going on back in America now, and it being just so divided, to take a step back and just to feel and see how so many different types of people can come together and just celebrate and have a good day and just be outside together. I think that is probably, and it's not just Berlin, but really all of Europe, just the culture of sitting outside at a cafe or a coffee shop or a restaurant, and they're just being people outside and talking and communicating and looking at each other and just being together. I think those are just the main things I love most about not only Germany but Berlin too.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. It's something that I definitely love about Berlin. And the city never sleeps, right? No matter what time you go out, there's always going to be people on the streets, people walking around and stuff. Um, cool, man. Really, I don't know. Like, I always finish up with a couple of rapid fire questions, which I would love to shoot at you. But before we do that, is there anything you want to tell the audience? I don't know, something to the Rebels fans, or how, people have welcomed you, or something to other maybe American players thinking about playing in Europe, and if that's something they should do. Anything you want to shout out to the audience?
I would say, yeah, any American that has even thought about coming out here, no matter what the level is, I think it's a great experience. And I think it's absolutely something you should do, whether it's, only for one season or a couple seasons. It is something, for me, like you said, I might not have, maybe obviously later in life, but in the near future, I might have never left the United States. I never would have known what life was like out here outside of the US. And just a different life and different culture and different experience. So for me, like, anybody can set aside 6 months of their life or a year to come out here and get to play football if you get that opportunity, right? Like, you can give up 6 months of your life to come out here, play football, experience a different culture, and learn and grow as a human being. Um, and so I would advise anybody and everybody to do it if you have that ability, obviously, um, and opportunity. I guess I would like to, you know, shout out the Rebels fans out there that we have an opportunity to win a playoff game for the first time in Rebels history. And we came up a little bit short 2 years ago. And like I said earlier, I think there's some unfinished business with that, and I think it's time that we give the Rebels their first playoff game victory ever. So I hope the Rebels fans out there know that they're loved by us and thanked by us for their continual support. And I know it's obviously there's a lot more history and things like that with other teams, with the Rebels kind of being not necessarily a brand new team, but just a newer team, newer franchise, and hasn't seen much success as other teams. I appreciate their support, and seeing some of the fans that have come out to every single game, and just thank them for their continual support, and hope that we can go pull it out for them.
Yeah, and I'm rooting for you, right? As much as we talked about the history between the Adler and the Rebels, it was never hate for me, but of course it was, let's say, a healthy rivalry, and I really hope that
Right.
you get to win this playoff game and get to be, as deep into the playoffs as you can, and then we'll see what happens. So everybody that's listening, right, make sure to tune in this weekend. You guys are playing in Munich, right, in the first round of the playoffs. So yeah, good luck for that one. But now let's get to those rapid fire questions. So
Okay.
the second one I might guess already, but let's start with the first one: beer or bratwurst?
Beer.
Beer. Okay, and then burger or döner?
I've grown to love a dooner, but I don't think anything beats a burger.
Okay. Well, I have to take the one, even though I have to say it's got to be the most difficult decision by any quarterback that's joined my podcast, because Berlin is like the home of the dinner. So
Yeah.
this is where you get the best ones. But yeah, I've
I
got to
yeah.
respect
I
that
will say
decision.
doing if you said anything besides a burger, I probably would have picked dinner.
Okay.
But a
But the
burger to
burger
me
is
is
just your
just
thing. Okay. I
home.
get it. I get it. That's fair.
Yeah,
Now, NFL team you'd love to play for.
yeah. For me, like I haven't really grown up loving the NFL and have a big fan of one team. But for me, the this will be either a loved or hated answer, and for me, that's kind of why I'm gonna say it, because I love to be loved, I love to be hated. So give me the Dallas Cowboys, so people can either love me or hate me.
Yeah, let's say it's pretty more the management that people love or hate,
Yeah,
specifically what's going on currently. But I hear you. As a kid, I used to be a,
yeah.
a Dallas Cowboys fan back when they still won championships. Let's say it this way. But a long time has passed since then. I'm not going to hate you for that answer. I can. It's definitely a great franchise to play for. when you look at everything else but the management, I have to say. But that's my
Yeah.
personal opinion.
Location-wise, give me Tampa Bay. I'd love to play there for location.
Oh, I love that stadium. We had like back when I
Yeah.
coached NFL Europe, we always had our training camp in Tampa Bay, and we would do scrimmages in the stadium and stuff. Great area. I loved it there. Anyway, next one. Your favorite quarterback to watch and why?
I grew up watching Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. Love both those guys. Love watching how they manage the game, their experience. You know, I try to emulate my game towards them. If I would pick a guy right now in the league, I would say Matthew Stafford. I think he's got a cannon of an arm. I think he is one of the toughest football players out there at the quarterback position. And you know, something that we talked about that you know I take pride in is being tough and leading by example in the way of like I'm not coming off the field unless somebody carries me off the field. You know, and I think that is Matthew Stafford's game. I think he's really smart. You know, I think what he can do with the football is incredible. I think what a lot of people have talked about, oh, Patrick Mahomes this and Aaron Rodgers that with the sidearm and this and that. Like honestly, Matthew Stafford's been doing that for years, and nobody's really talked about it. So I think he's definitely a quarterback I love to watch.
Well, he's definitely underrated right now. I do agree with that. I think there's more to him than people talk about these days, for sure. So good choice from my perspective. And then last one is, tell us about the hardest college hit you ever took,
Hmm.
if you remember.
Yeah, I did get knocked out that one time. It wasn't the hardest hit. It was kind of just how my head hit the ground, whatever. But the hardest college hit was probably my 2019 season, my senior year, early on. I took off running, and I was getting towards the end zone, but a safety was coming down at me, and I had guys right behind me, so I couldn't like slide. And so I kind of just braced for impact on the hit. And he kind of came up under my chin and just launched at me, got the flag, got thrown out the game. But launched at me, hit me here, and my neck and head like completely went back and cracked everything that you can ever crack in your neck. Uh, and so my upper back, my neck, and obviously my head, I was seeing stars and cobwebs and everything. But um, as soon as I hit the ground, I didn't want him to know he hit me hard. So I got up and started walking back, and they threw the flags and they were stopping play. And I was just looking back, and the whole sideline's looking at me like the trainers are ready to come out, like, you know, all that type of stuff. 'Cause it was a pretty big hit. And but I'm a guy that I don't care how hard you hit me, I'm gonna get right up and not let you know that hurt or anything. So that was definitely probably the one I felt the most. Yeah.
No, man. But luckily, nothing serious to carry on for later on in the years. And Connor, I really appreciate your time, right? I had a blast talking to you. Thank you for joining. Thank you for taking out of time. It's an important week for you and the team, right? To prep for the game day. It's practice day today, so you probably soon head out to the field and get ready to meet with the guys and watch some film together, and then prep for Munich. So thanks for joining. Really appreciate it, and all the best for this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Had a blast talking to you as well. And yeah, appreciate the support, even from you know, coming from the Adler background. It means a lot. Go Rebels, and hopefully we can get it done.
All right, thank you. Das war die Folge mit Connor Kaegi, dem Starting QB der Berlinrebels. Wie gesagt, jetzt am Wochenende Playoff Time. Also schaltet ein auf Sport Europe TV München gegen die Rebels. Wie gesagt, in München das Ganze. Und ja, danke fürs Einschalten, danke fürs Zuhören. Nicht vergessen, den Podcast abonnieren, wenn er euch gefällt. Ist auf sämtlichen Podcast-Plattformen verfügbar und auch auf YouTube. Also gerne da den Subscribe-Button klicken und natürlich immer gerne Feedback geben. Also Daumen hoch auf YouTube oder dementsprechend raten natürlich auf den Podcast-Plattformen. Bin ich tierisch dankbar für. Schickt mir gerne auch Kommentare, entweder über Social Media oder in den Podcast, wenn ihr bestimmte Themen habt, die ihr hören wollt. Gäste kennt, die ich mal einladen soll, ob es nur Coaches sind oder auch Quarterbacks. Und ansonsten, ja, noch eine schöne Restwoche. NFL ist ja auch wieder am Start. Also da wird es immer spannender, während die Luft schon ganz schön heiß brennt in der GFL. Ich wünsche euch was.